Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Live at the Corners. I want to start by asking everyone in the audience a few questions. First, I'd like you to think about your 10 closest friends, even your 15 closest. Now, once you have them in mind, think about this. How many of them are African American, or even a person of color? Now, let's take a moment to put the lens on ourselves. No matter the color of your skin, focus in on your racial identity. Think back to the first time you were aware of your own racial identity. What was this event like? How did it make you feel? For any of you who have never thought about this, ask yourself, why is that? And finally, I want you to consider two phrases. The first, Black Lives Matter. The second, All Lives Matter. Which one do you align yourself with? Take a moment to consider why this is. And as you do, I'd like to welcome you to Live at the Corners. So, this week, my name is Richie Boylan. I'm a junior studying film and TV at Boston University, and along with my co-host.
I'm Shelby Boylan, and I'm in 9th grade at Westerly High School, and I'm the vice president of my class.
We'll be leading you through the events. We'll have a question and answer panel, but first I want to introduce you to what Live at the Corners is and to the youth group. So, Live at the Corners is a 5-week program that we in the youth group are running that is meant to address topics related to racial and social justice. Episodes will air each Tuesday at 6, as with this episode. Our goal is largely to raise awareness about racial and social justice, especially in youth, and invite conversations towards these issues. Live at the Corners arises from an event we had earlier in the summer. This August, we had a smaller question and answer panel at the Duns Corners Church with an audience of about 30 that had a very strong turnout, and the audience was wondering where we'd go next. So we decided that this was the next logical steps to expand the topics that we touched upon and reach a wider audience. As part of that wider audience, we really encourage audience participation. So we ask you to interact during our live stream, ask questions, comments, and during our final episode, we'll be happy to hold another panel in which we address all these questions. So now I want to introduce you to the youth group. This iteration of the youth group was formed in September of 2014 with the arrival of our new youth group leader, Michael Walton. The youth group has been very involved in the community, hosting a number of events and helping out with other community service partners. In the past, we've held 2 Speak Out to Reach Out tours in Rhode Island, which focuses on connecting middle and high school age children with positive role models and stories of overcoming adversity. We've also worked with local partners to raise awareness about domestic abuse. In addition to our community work, the youth group is also essentially a second family for all of us. We've taken a lot of life-changing trips together. In the past, we've gone and toured ESPN, and we've even played basketball on the court of TD Garden. Our next trip that we have coming up is to a 12-day service trip to Ghana, Africa, in which we'll be working with local community partners to help address certain needs there, such as helping with public health and education. Originally, the trip was planned for this summer, but due to the current circumstances, it'll be taking place next summer. And now, I want to introduce you to some of our teen team members here tonight. Each of them will say their name, their grade, and a fun fact about themselves. So, Tegan, would you like to start?
All right. Good evening. My name is Tegan Smith. I am in 11th grade, and I like to go fishing.
Hi, I'm Marissa Pansera. I'm a freshman at Westerly High, and I've been doing dance for 12 years.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Natalie Gray. I'm also a freshman at Westerly, and I have a great love for Barbie movies.
So now that you've met the teen team, we're going to delve into our first question. All right, so when each of you ask your question, just raise your hand first so we can call on you, and then that way the audience can see who's talking. So the first question we have for tonight is, what does the term Black Lives Matter mean to you? Natalie?
I think that it's a term, but it's backed up by like a lot of like there's a lot of like meaning behind it, but it's also just a term. Like people have been saying all lives matter, Black Lives Matter, but they're just terms, and yes, all lives matter, but like the Black Lives Matter is because like there's more like hate towards them. I don't know. I think it's a term, but it's like an important one that we need to like take notice of.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to contribute? Marissa?
I agree with Natalie. I think it's a term that we have to pay more attention to and do more about.
And Tegan, like, do you have any final thoughts? If not, it's all right.
I'm just trying to
No, that's no
think
problem.
of the best things to say.
We'll move on to Shelby for the next question.
Okay. How well is our community addressing issues of racial injustice, and how can our community better address this issue? Marissa?
I think we've had a few things downtown for it, but I think we could do a better job addressing it. And
Yeah, I think it's a matter of like bringing awareness to the topic and like instilling the knowledge onto like further generations and making it like an important topic to like discuss.
I guess I'll jump in too and say, I know Westerly at least has weekly Black Lives Matter rallies downtown. I know they're very strong during the summer. I attended a few of them, but since then I think they've had lower attendance, kind of like petered out. So I think it's something that the town has, even though it's a small group running it, I think it's something the town as a whole kind of has to address and try to make a space for it where it's not a conversation that just is topical for a few weeks or a few months at a time and persists. So I think I'll move on to the next question then. And Shelby, again, feel free to answer along with the rest of the panel too. So yesterday, all of us head off for Columbus Day. So this question is kind of in lieu of that, or is inspired by that. So America has a history of idolizing problematic historical figures, such as Christopher Columbus with holidays and monuments. So why do you think we continue to celebrate these figures, and how should we fix and or address this? Marissa?
I believe like history is history and we can't really change it, but I don't think we should be celebrating someone who's had slaves and done the wrong thing.
Tegan, go for it.
So I think part of the reason why we still see Columbus Day as Columbus Day is partly out of ignorance and also a little bit of apathy. People don't completely take into consideration the negative aspects of Columbus and his funded expedition over to the West Indies. But another thing that my father brought up to me last week actually is that the settlement that was established by Columbus and explorers in the West Indies was one of, if not the first, lasting establishments in the New World at that time. So that is one of the important things that is celebrated and that should be taken into account when viewing this topic.
Thank you. That was a very strong answer taken. Natalie, you had your hand raised too?
I definitely agree with Marissa that like it shouldn't be celebrated. It's not something to praise, but it's also, like she also said, and like Tegan said, it's history. Like you can't go back and change it, but it's like it's something that you shouldn't like celebrate. And for the longest time, we didn't even like. I just remember in history class like learning that like Christopher Columbus found like the New World, and it's like, yeah, but what did he do like whilst he was doing that to like jeopardize the culture of like these people that were already there? And it's just not, the things that he did weren't something to praise.
Okay. Do you think racism is learned, or are people born racist, and why? Marissa?
I think racism is definitely learned. I think the parents of the children are racist, and then the kids learn from their parents, and it's kind of like a generation thing of like families.
I believe that for the most part, racism is a learned trait and can be undone. And I would like to add to that by saying that one of the possible origins of racism may be due to our natural instinct to favor people who we are more familiar with, which I think mainly stems from a hormone. Sorry, I'm trying to remember what it is called. Oxytocin, I believe. One of the effects that it has on our body is influencing our mentality so that, as I've already said, we tend to find more solace and are more friendly towards those that are people we've, for instance, been brought up with and just are more familiar with. And that of course does not justify the beliefs of racism.
Yeah, I definitely believe that it's we're not born racist. We're not born like, we have good morals, but it's just the way that we're grown up in society's like effect on us, and like the environment that we're raised in plays a huge part in like our own beliefs. And I think that if we just change the setting and change the way that society views issues like this, we as people will change our views and become more aware.
Yeah, before I move on to the next question, I just kind of like to echo what you've all said and kind of harken back to the question I asked in the cold open along the lines of like your environment, who you're familiar with. And if you're someone who's grown up in a very like racially divided environment, I've only had like white friends, then it's definitely something where it'll be much easier, I believe, to ingrain racism into someone, especially if you live in a society that has so many practices and systems like the prison system that just reinforces racial divides. So actually, as a strong segue into my next question, right now we definitely live in a very divided nation, especially over issues of race and equal rights. So what steps do you think we need to take as a country to address these issues in this division?
I think that our generation is definitely, like, we've all become so aware, and that I think that we are going to teach our own children, the way that we raise our children will be very different than like how we were raised. And I think that just how we do that will ingrain into our children like like their generation will be a lot more inclusive than past generations. And I think just in this day and age, I think awareness is a big thing. But
I agree with Natalie. I think that there's always going to be racist people, and it's always going to be passed down in families. But I think as we go on, more and more people are realizing and like getting to know like the Black Lives Matter and changing the way they think about it.
Shelby, would you like to add anything? No? Natalie, you raised your hand?
I also think that like some people, even just like the ego that we have, like we don't feel that we can switch our view. Like I feel like there's definitely some people that have been racist in the past, but now they see the mistake and they want to fix it. But it's also like if you've been like that before, switching your views, you know, and towards your peers and everything, it can be like people can think that it's not as easy as it could be, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, so kind of like the idea of just like a group mentality.
Exactly.
Trying to change your views when you're already in a group of people who think differently, and it'll kind of set you against them.
Exactly.
If we're all set, Shelby?
What is your earliest memory of becoming aware of racism?
Could you restate the question?
What is your earliest memory of becoming aware of racism?
No, I mean, could you put it in other words?
Oh, like, how did you?
So I think like what was the first time that you were aware that, because racism is largely based on people being prejudiced towards someone based on the color of their skin. So what was the first time you were kind of aware of this happening, or like recognized someone being racist, I would say? Because I guess when you're a child, like you're not innately aware of it. And you can take a minute to think about it, because it's kind of a...
Well, I could start, actually.
Go for it then.
So before my education started, I never really knew about racism and the impact it had on society and still has. But then after learning about the American institution of slavery, for instance, and also the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s in elementary school, especially learning about Martin Luther King and what they were pushing against, I'd say that's probably my first exposure to that.
I think there's always going to be slight discriminating views on like different cultures, but I don't think that I've ever like, I think as someone who is white, like I haven't experienced it firsthand, but I've obviously seen it happen. I don't know, I can't like relate because I like, as someone who is white, I have so much like, we have like the supremacy, but we don't, I've never like firsthand seen it happen, I guess.
I guess the first time I really like learned about it was in school when we learned about like the slave trade and all that, and I never realized how bad it was until we like were watching videos about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree largely with you guys. Like learning about it in school is probably the first time I've become very very aware about it. But I think more recently too, especially, so I'll bring in kind of like the film and TV background, is film has a very rough history with very poor depictions of especially African Americans in film history. Like for a long time, blackface was okay, and it like wasn't questioned And even the first like widely released talking film, The Jazz Singer, was like, it's like remembered to be like heralded for like introducing sound, but it also has characters who wear blackface. So it's like, it's something that's been better addressed now, but it's something that just so much culturally we have to be aware of, even when we're not, even if we don't know like the history of some of like our cultural institutions, it's most likely there. So I'm going to preface my next question with, within the last few years, athletes in the NFL, NBA, and MLB have vocally taken part in protests against racism by actions such as kneeling during the national anthem. Now, critics argue that these actions detract from the sport and that athletes should stick to the game. Do you think there's a place for protesting in sports, or even to expand upon it, do you think that celebrities should use their base to actively protest?
I think if you have a voice, use it, and your own opinion shouldn't deteriorate like from the game. If the sport and your personal views are completely different, but I think that like with the pledge and all of that, they intertwine, and I don't think someone should be judged like on their sport performance because of their personal views, or vice versa. They're completely different, and I think that they have the right to state their opinion or give their view.
I agree with Natalie. I think if they have a voice, they should use it. Yeah.
Anything to add, Tegan or Shelby?
I was going to say what Natalie said.
I don't really have anything to add.
All right. Yeah, I think Natalie summed it up fairly well. Good job sweeping the question.
Yeah.
Shelby, on to you.
Why do some people believe one race is superior to another? And have you ever had to confront someone who was racist?
I think growing up, especially in school, like you're taught that if someone's bullying someone else, you have to speak up. But it's also one of those things where if it's your friend, if it's someone that you like have known, or even if it's just someone off the street, like sometimes you just don't feel like it's your place to step in, or it is your place, but it's not, it can be like challenging sometimes. And like going back to the question, I think that, wait, can you say the question again actually?
Yeah. How do some people believe one race is superior to another, and have you ever had to confront someone who was racist?
Oh, yeah, okay. So, like, with the whole confrontation is what I'm trying to, like, discuss. And I think that, like, you also have a voice, and you should state your opinion and make it clear that what they're saying or doing is wrong, and make them aware of that, and, like, point someone out when they're making, like, a false assumption or whatever. But I think that also, like, we grow up in a society where, like, we have, like, there are definitely people who have, like, a bigger advantage, and until recently we haven't really noticed it because, like, we don't recognize it unless it's happening directly to us.
So as we've already established, the way someone is brought up has a huge impact on their views. So of course, people who are very much immersed in that sort of culture, they're obviously more likely to develop those beliefs themselves. And to answer the second part of the question, I never really met anyone who was either racist or very segregated, or not segregated, sorry, very prejudice against another race, or even people of the same race. I never really met anyone like that until I came to my high school, but it was kind of in the opposite way that we're talking about right now. It was more of a anti-Caucasian thing. It was kind of like, it was just them grouping all members of the Caucasian race together. There are many people of all races who are not kind to either their own race or people with other skin tones, but and we should be aware that there are people like that, even people who may be related to us, but I also think it's wrong for people to group everyone together when they think, oh sorry, I should wrap this up. We shouldn't group people together sorry, Michael, I'm just trying to finish it off. We should be aware of what other people who share our ethnic backgrounds. We should be aware of the negative impacts that they have, but we should also not judge someone based off of those negative aspects. That is all.
And I'd say, just for the sake of time, we'll have one final question before we wrap up. So I'd like to ask all of you, why is it important to foster a society that appreciates and celebrates diversity?
Could you restate that? Or not restate it, but could you repeat that?
Yeah, I'll repeat it. So why is it important to foster a society that appreciates diversity? Natalie?
I think that we all have to recognize and praise our differences, and that in a society we should for sure be doing that. Like in friend groups, in school and everything, having differences shouldn't be a challenge. It shouldn't be something to look down upon. It brings us like together, because say someone has a skill that you don't have, well, you can ask them to teach you the skill. It's just common things like that where differences should be praised rather than discriminated, and I think we've kind of lost sight of that.
Well, did you have something taken?
It was a short thing. So
Yeah,
I agree with what Natalie said, and I would also like to restate what Martin Luther King Jr. was pushing in his I Have a Dream speech, the fact that we should judge people based on who they are as people and not by their skin tone. Yeah, simply that.
And then, just for you, Marissa, why is it important to foster a society that appreciates diversity?
Well, I know in the dance society, they're still really behind on like the whole Black Lives Matter and all of that, because I have an African American friend that I dance with, and they don't make like black point shoes. They only make pink point shoes to go with the white skin, because it's supposed to elongate your legs and make them look good, but like when you're a different color from the point shoe, it doesn't look right. So they don't make black point shoes, or only in Europe they do. So I think it's really important that they fix that, because I find it kind of racist that they haven't done that yet.
Well, with that, I want to thank all the members of the Teen Team who came out here tonight and helped. And I'd like to invite Pastor Wayne up for a closing prayer.
I want to thank our panel. What a good job. I'm the pastor of our church here, and we also have a wonderful youth leader, our youth director, Michael Walton. You guys tonight, you were helping us move toward something that's really important. There's a vision in the Bible that all of creation is one, that every creature is in community with others, and they live in harmony and security toward that. Things like racism fall short of that. When we separate, as Tegan talked about the color of our skin, and Marissa, what a powerful example from the world of dance. And I think as we see these things, we can work toward them. Richie mentioned in his introduction that this group was scheduled to go to Ghana this summer for an international trip. That trip was put on hold, but the passion behind the trip wasn't put on hold. That when the whole Black Lives Matter movement was coming up, you called for a chance to come together and address it, and I want to thank you for that, to ask you to keep working on it. And tonight, as we have finished up, Lord, we look forward to next week when we're going to have a presentation from Star Services, who lead these international trips to Ghana. They'll come and talk about the work they do. And week by week, God, help us to address these issues, to seek understanding, to be ones who not only talk about what we know, but who keep learning. We all need to learn and to grow. And in the Bible, you say that the mustard seed is the smallest of seeds, but that seed can grow. Take the mustard seed of faith and commitment tonight and help it to grow. We want to see a world that looks like the world you want us to be, where people respect one another, where we don't have to separate by the color of our skin or the things that make us different. You want us to find ways to be together. God, we're sorry that it's become important to say that Black lives do matter, that there's been injustice, and we want to be a part of addressing that and justice for all people. So we give you these prayers in your holy name. Amen. Thank you again to the teen team. You did a great job tonight.
I just want to say thank you again to the teen team. Thank you to Wayne. Thank you to AJ, our man behind the scene running the stream. So without him, this wouldn't be happening. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and watching us tonight. And I invite all of you to join us again next Tuesday at 6 o'clock for our next panel. And also, I just want to make sure that you follow us on social media, Live at the Corners on Facebook and Instagram. And you can contact us on our Gmail, liveatthecorners@gmail.com. Until next week, everyone. Thank you.
Like and subscribe.
Whoa.
Good job.
Cool.
Thanks for being honest as you spoke. That was really helpful.
I don't think I did a very good job.
No, you did great. Everyone did great.
You guys would turn your microphones off. I'll grab those from you. Who's got the handheld?
Honestly, Tegan, I thought you did very strong. I liked how you brought in like the counterpoint to